Are you looking to grow your dental practice and attract top-tier new patients? Discover the potential of digital marketing with a personalized strategy session. Join Lila Stone, the marketing director at Equa, for an exclusive 90-minute consultation. Lila and her team will dedicate 6 hours before your meeting to create a customized marketing plan specifically for your practice. This valuable opportunity is free of charge and comes with no commitments. Visit www.insuranceuntangledorg/MSM to schedule your meeting with Lila today. You'll also receive a free analysis report so you can start transforming your practice through the power of digital marketing.
You are now listening to another episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast, where we explore the various challenges faced by dental practices due to their reliance on insurance. Join us in this podcast as we dive deep into the issues surrounding dental insurance dependence and offer practical solutions and strategies to help you take control of your practice's financial future.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast. My name is Ben Tuine, and I'm one of the co-hosts on this podcast. And as y'all know, we develop these things for you to help you untangle yourselves from the big mess of insurance that we seem to be dealing with ever more constantly these days. And I have my good friend and co-host with me, Naren Aruraja, with us. Naren, how are you, my friend? Sorry.
I'm doing great, Ben. Really happy to be here. And I know we have an interesting topic today, what Google really wants from your dental website in 2026.
Absolutely. So we're going to hit that hard. Great to be with you, Naren, and welcome back to all of our listeners today on our podcast. And so today we want to talk about that. We want to talk about something that I think every dental practice depends on, whether you're PPO heavy or hybrid, meaning, some insurance is here or there, some doctors in network, some out of network, or even, aiming for that pinnacle area of practice, which is fee for service. The common denominator in terms of what impacts all of you is your website. So, I hear from dentists who say they spend a ton on beautiful websites, but they're not ranking and they're still not getting new patients despite spending thousands and tens of thousands of dollars on their beautiful website. So I want to dig into that. I want to dig into what Google is intending to do in 2026, and why looking isn't just good enough anymore. Browsing the internet, that whole concept isn't just that isn't what we should be focusing on as business owners. And so of course we have Naren with us today, and we're going to be picking Naren's brain about this whole concept, because if there's a person to ask a question about what Google's thinking for the next year, it's going to be Naren. So Naren, I talked to dentists who've sort of invested in beautiful and stunning websites, yet they never show up on search results when you Google a dentist in their communities. Why do so many dentists look good or have really, really amazing websites, but still fail at that whole Google game in attracting new patients?
You are asking a good question at a very interesting time. This episode is going to come out soon, and, we are talking about what we should do in 2026. Especially the topic is what Google really wants from your dental website in 2026. I just want to set the stage for a little bit, right? The world is totally changing. And this is not like maybe it'll change, but it's absolutely changing. What I mean is, there's no doubt in my mind, in 10 to 20 years from now, all white collar jobs would be mostly done by, AI or computers. And many, jobs that we do with our hands also will be done by AI or computers. Driving a car, writing a letter, a legal letter, doing reviews of, resumes. You go on and on and on. AI is going to do it. And Google was the first company on the planet to say AI first. And the CEO of Google said that, I think, in 2017 or 2016, literally, 9 years ago. So they have been working at it for a long time. In the early days when ChatGPT first came out, people thought Google was caught flat-footed, but they were not. Of course, they didn't have something for the consumers, but behind the scenes, they had the building blocks, the technology, everything. And those of you who are paying attention to the stock market, for example, know Google's stock price has gone up by $2 trillion in the last 7 months. $2 trillion.
Wow.
It has never happened in the history. Why? Google owns AI. So if you listen carefully to the CEO of Google as to how he sees the world going, is, he believes that Google will be AI powered. So already you can go to Google and you can say dentist near me. They'll show local dentists. You can say Invisalign dentist in a zip code. They will show a local dentist. They'll show the website. They'll show the reviews. So people already use Google 30 billion times a day. 12 billion times they use Google search, and 5 billion times they use Google Maps. So Google it's just mind blowing. The amount we depend on as a human race on Google, and and everything, Gmail, Google Docs, Google Calendar, Google Images, everything. Like, it's just how we live, right? Now, the reason Google has checkmated the whole world is when you have people using Google 30 billion times a day and ChatGPT is used 100 million times a day, Google is 300 times bigger. You know what I mean?
Right.
So even if ChatGPT grows 10 times in 1 year, which is impossible to happen, Google has to grow just 10% to beat ChatGPT. Oh, I forgot YouTube, right? Which is the largest platform for videos in the world. It's bigger than all TV stations, every other online platform several times over. So Google owns this world of, how consumers do things, live, make decisions. So I think we really have to understand what Google is seeing and kind of optimize for that. So Google in 2026 is rewarding people who are trying to help consumers. So rewarding content that feels real and helpful. So keyword stuffing, trying to rank for a particular keyword doesn't work anymore. For many years, Google used something called Google Lighthouse Code. Now they have replaced it with Google CR UX. CR stands for Chrome, UX stands for user interface. So now if according to Chrome, by the way, Chrome is another app that's used billions of times a day, which is their, a browser. Now, according to Google, if your website is not fast to load, if your website doesn't have the right information, if your website has information that's not trustworthy, meaning it's linked to a human being, in this case, a qualified dentist who has the relevant credentials, you're not going to rank. And given Google is 300 times bigger than ChatGPT and pretty much anybody else, it's almost like there's Google, and Google is like even Microsoft when it comes to search is 1/20th the size of Google or 1/30th the size of Google. They don't have a competition. They're like 95% of the market. They own the market and they're expanding and expanding. So like two things that are helpful, pay attention to Google, where they are going. So we have been revamping our entire team to really get ready and own the AI first space. So already our clients are showing up not only on like regular search, but on AI overview, AI mode, many times. Still AI overview and AI mode is only like 3% of total search volume, like out of the 30 billion, but it's growing pretty fast. I mean, billion is pretty big numbers. So Google is growing like gangbusters, and our job is to stay up. Now, of course, we don't want to ignore ChatGPT, even though ChatGPT, recently the CEO sent out a letter saying, red alert, like they are in big trouble because Google is killing them on the business side. And also for every dollar they make, they lose $7. So they are having a hard time justifying to all these investors, why keep losing $7? Where are they going to make a profit, or when are they going to make a profit? So anyways, I don't want to get into the business side of AI wars and whatnot, but I do think we need to make sure our content is useful and we're doing everything Google wants, and we'll do fine in the AI world. So I think even this question you asked about a beautiful website, in the AI world, it's less relevant. Websites, a lot of people don't even have to go to websites anymore. They can get the answers right off of Google. They can find your phone number. They can even book an appointment or call your office right off of Google. So even though website is important to talk to Google and get Google to like you and trust you, it's not important as a lead source. So in the old days, we would tell our clients, look at how many visitors went to your website. Now we are saying, look at how many phone calls are you getting, how many appointments are you getting, because that's what really matters. How they come, whether it's through Google Maps or through SEO, doesn't matter. Like you want the phone calls. So as long as your phone calls and your leads are going from organic marketing, you're in good shape.
That's awesome. You mentioned something there that kind of stuck out to me. And it's the reason why it stuck out to me is because we live in a a social media content driven world, where you could be a successful YouTuber or TikToker and then appear on ESPN like that pizza guy is like doing picks on ESPN and he's like a TikToker, but he has a following and he's content driven in terms of what he does. So let's talk about content. You had mentioned that content driven is sort of where, at least you alluded to that's where kind of Google is kind of giving priority on that. Can you speak to what kinds of content is Google giving priority to now these days in terms of ranking of websites?
Yeah, so Google is rewarding content that is helpful, right? See, one of the things that people are worried about when it comes to AI, especially like the new AI products like ChatGPT, it makes up nonsense. In other words, it's not linked to an authority. It just makes it up. It puts words together. I don't know if you heard, but there was a person in Texas who committed suicide because this was literally like encouraging him, saying, "Oh yeah, you need to do it. You should do this. You should do that."
Yeah, I remember.
You remember that, right? So
Sad
that's because
story.
It's making up those words. It doesn't understand the consequences of what it's saying. Google doesn't do that. Like if you go and do any kind of a search, let's say you say, write me a letter to send to a tenant who I would like to vacate my premises because I want to move in. Mm-hmm. Google will write the letter and it'll give you sources as to where he got the information from. So you don't need to guess if it's just made up and will get you in trouble, or yeah, according to the law, yes, this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do. It'll give you the sources. And the reason Google is able to do that is they have the biggest index and the most up-to-date index on the planet. They crawl the entire world, hundreds of billions of pages every day to get the latest and the greatest information. Nobody has millions of servers to keep up with Google. So a lot of times I've had people like, I went to Ireland, I think I used Grok and ChatGPT, and it suggested certain routes and it suggested certain restaurants. Those restaurants don't exist. Why? Because they don't update their information. So, it's like 2-year-old information, 3-year-old information. Yeah, it existed 2 years ago. So I do think, having content that is honest is good. Now, Google, in addition to putting sources, it also is prioritizing, especially when it comes to healthcare, information from doctors. So you, including your bio and your credentials on that page, now tells Google you are not only just a human being who has a mouth, but you're also qualified to say what you're going to say, what you're saying. So like Google will, link to your web page, and they will only link to it if it's in healthcare, if you are using EEAT guidelines. E for expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trust. So having your bio with your qualification, what university you studied in, what degrees you have, makes a huge difference. Now, this is a huge advantage for people who know what they're doing and who are doing all the things Google is asking. We have been doing EEAT for a long time, but now it's even more important because of all this made up nonsense from AI. And Google is like, we don't do that. We will give you information. Of course, we're going to write it for you, write that letter for you, make your life easier, like all the other AI platforms. But we will give you source, and the source will be a real doctor. So one of the questions I get asked is, where should I get CE? If you're getting CE from a university, that in Google's eyes is better than CE from a no-name person who's doing a weekend class. So, keep getting CE from established institutions. Keep highlighting that information, including your degrees, properly. Again, you need to have technical people who know how to do it properly. And we have been doing it for like 6-7 years now. And now we are doubling down because in the AI world, it's even more important. Now, focus on doing the right thing. And Google keeps saying that, you help your customers, do the right thing, give them the right information, make sure it's linked to authority, and we'll take care of you.
Yeah, I like that. What about credibility, Naren? It seems like this is a huge part when it comes to professional services, in the world of medicine. How does Google decide whether a dental site is actually trustworthy in order to improve its ranking?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I kind of alluded to you in my last answer. Google uses EEAT, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And you have a degree, you have a DDS, right? You have a degree that you can, mention. You can mention the university you went to. You can mention, a link to your license. You can mention, when you graduated. So this tells Google you are qualified to talk about dentistry. So you really need to, this is a great time, if you know what you're doing, to really stand out. Of course, just doing EAT and ignoring everything else Google is telling you, like the rest of CRUX, is not going to get you to rank. But if you also pay attention to EAT, in addition to CRUX, have these bios, even including reviews is powerful, right? Having a Google review that's linked from your relevant pages, having relevant, cases, having videos where you explain things. Again, all linked with your bio. These are all very powerful techniques. I think where people get tripped up is it's very technical. So if you don't do it exactly the way Google wants, you won't rank. You won't get the benefit.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome how you answer that question. You often think about how credibility ties into an individual or a business's ranking on Google and whether it would score well. And I always think dentists are licensed. They're top tier professionals, but there's a lot of them, around the world and in the country. So, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, go ahead. I
was talking to a friend of mine who happens to be a dentist, and he said something really interesting. He said, in dentistry, even though you are a really bad business person, you won't go out of business. Why? Because to be a dentist, you have to have a degree. You have to have an accreditation versus anybody can open up a med spa. Anybody can open up a beauty clinic. Anybody can open up a hair salon. You can't do that in dentistry. There's only a limited number of people, and there's more demand than supply. So, but same thing applies to Google. But even though when you look at that EAT, we have done some studies on it, less than 10% of practices know how to do EAT well, so they don't get any benefit.
Yeah. I think about that all the time, especially I have endodontist clients. And, to me, when I look at an endodontist, they have a license to print money. When you look at their margins, and they do a little bit of this here and there to kind of improve their visibility, especially among referring doctors. It just makes a big world of difference for them, But what about, I'm thinking about our conversation here, Naren, on different angles of 2026. What about mobile experience? I'm kind of hearing that's where marketers should focus, a lot on, because, well, I guess I should ask you, why is mobile performance so critical for this upcoming year in 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, every year, the amount of time we spend on mobile devices keeps going up and up and up and up. So today, more than 2/3 in North America of time and how we use Google is on mobile, right? We use Google Search on mobile. We use Google Maps on mobile. We use Google Photos on mobile. We use Gmail on mobile. So that's kind of where it's at. Of course, Google owns Android, another product that's used by 4 billion people. Like Google owns products that literally has 5 billion users. It's just unreal. And of course, even on Apple, Chrome is the number one browser. I think they paid Apple like $10 billion a year just to make sure it's the number one browser on and the number one app on Google, Apple iOS operating system. So mobile is important. It is where people are spending more time. So you want to make sure your website is optimized for mobile. For example, if your website is slow to open on a mobile device, right? Remember, mobile means they could be coming from fast networks, slow networks, old phones, new phones, big screens, small screens. Your website should be optimized for every one of those, every network, every type of device, every screen size, every type of technology. So learning how to do that, of course, we have been doing this for like 7-8 years now because mobile is not new. It's getting more and more important, making sure it's fast, making sure the layouts are optimized for the screen size. And there are different technologies we use behind the scene. A good thing about Google is Google tells you what to do, what not to do. They'll give you tools you can use to see what you're doing well, what you're not doing well. But then you have to fix all these things. And as Google changes its mind and changes its standards, you have to stay up. So, for example, we have a 30-person team of webmasters, and that's all they do. They keep up with Google's standards for mobile and desktop. And of course, CRUX is part of that.
I love that. Naren. Well, this is so excellent. As I'm kind of unpacking everything that you're saying, I kind of want to bring it all together now. When we're talking about website performance, patient experience, which to me they kind of sound like two different things, but when you look at them, how do those two things, website performance and patient experience, influence each other and create good results for those, for dental practices that are looking to boost their patient flow?
Yeah, that's a great question. See, they're tightly connected, right? Everything works together. Patients leave slow websites. They leave confusing websites. They leave websites that don't have clear call to actions. Today I had a conversation with a client. He just became a new client and he's getting 30 new patient calls. And he's, of course, a great dentist. He already had like 400 reviews and 4.9 stars. But it's like day and night. He was getting 7 new patients and now 30 new patients. Why? He's getting tons of calls for sedation and implants, things he used to do that he was not ranking for. Now he's ranking for. Of course, the phone is ringing. Now what he needs to work on is conversion rate. Like how many of them are booking appointments, even like call buttons and making it easy. Tracking how many calls you're getting. He's getting a total of 180 calls. And of course, 30 of them are new patient calls. We talked about trust, right? How do you create trust? EAT, including your bios, including Google reviews. Your website is the first impression. Now, many times they will directly call you from Google Maps or from Google AI Overview. It doesn't matter, right? You just want the phone to ring. And as long as you're getting more phone calls and more new patients, that's what you need to measure. And that's the metric you should be focused on. But you can look at some of the underlying metrics. How many keywords am I ranking for? How many people are seeing me on Google? Yes, how many people are even going to my website, even though we know they don't have to go to your website to call you or to book an appointment with you.
Yeah, I love that, Naren. All this information is so amazing. And if I'm kind of, but maybe listening to this stuff and resonating with this, I imagine a lot of listeners would realize that, the websites that they have might be beautiful, but in terms of how it's performing might be not doing what they want, right? So what do you recommend in terms of where a doctor should start to sort of enhance their journey with this idea of being more visible to the community by utilizing this big, great tool called Google?
Great question. Start by getting an audit, right? Try to understand where you are, where you need to go. Because if you don't know where you are and where you need to go, you're going to keep getting lost, right? If you want 2026 to be different from every other year, that's where you start. So one of the things we offer is what we call a marketing strategy meeting, where we do an audit. We'll tell you how you are doing on SEO. We'll tell you how you are doing with AI search. We'll tell you, if your website is loading fast, if you're using EAT. So get that audit done and then come up with a plan. Again, we provide a plan, a 12-month plan to dominate Google, to get into that top 5% of practice owners who are getting 95% of the exposure, especially the unpaid or free exposure, right? Meaning things you're getting without having to pay money on Google Ads. So that's where I would start. The link for that is insuranceuntangledcom/MSM. Once you have that, meeting and you know where you need to start, then take the necessary step, whether you're with us or somebody else, start addressing those things. Try to figure out how you're going to get to the top 5% and rank for 100 keywords and start taking action. So insuranceuntangledcom/MSM.
Wonderful. I highly recommend that. We've had nothing but great reviews and great experiences among my own clientele and friends with regards to that marketing strategy meeting. So thank you, Naren, for being so generous and willing to offer that to our listeners. I really appreciate that. And thank you for your wisdom today. And we're going to wrap things up because this has been great. We'll leave you all with some things to think about and some tools and tips for you to implement. So thank you, Naren. And I want to take a minute to thank our listeners for joining us today on another amazing episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast. Don't forget to share this with your friends on social media or any other platform that you use. And also your reviews will help boost what we're trying to do, the mission that we're trying to achieve to help untangle practices from this whole area of insurance, and marketing concepts is one of those things. So visit insuranceuntangledcom for webinars, future episodes. And don't also forget that we're also on YouTube. It's at Insurance Untangled. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest episodes that we're going to push out. Until we meet next time again, folks, we wish all of you the best of success. Take care now.